There's a theory about Hawkins, Indiana, that nobody wants to talk about. Not the fans, not the analysts, not even the creators who built that world. It's a theory that suggests everything we watched, every victory, every reunion, every moment of hope, was nothing but a comfortable lie, a dream playing out in the final seconds before complete annihilation. The theory is simple and it's devastating. Hawkins was never saved. Not in 1983. Not in 1984. Not ever. The town died the moment Will Byers vanished into the upside down, and everything that came after was just a death dream of a world collapsing in on itself. Think about it. Really think about it. A small town in Indiana becomes ground zero for interdimensional horror. Gates open to a realm of pure decay. Monsters slip through. People die. The contamination spreads. And somehow, every single time, a group of kids on bikes manages to save the world. A police chief with a drinking problem becomes a hero. A teenage girl discovers she has reality-bending powers at exactly the right moment. It's too perfect. Too convenient. Too much like a story someone would tell themselves when the truth is too terrible to face. What if the Upside Down didn't just take Will Byers that night in November 1983? What if it took everything? The entire town. Every person in it. And what we've been watching all along is a collective hallucination of a community being slowly digested by something that exists outside of time and space. The evidence is everywhere once you start looking. And the most disturbing part? The show itself seems to know. There are moments, brief flashes, where the illusion cracks, where you can see the truth bleeding through. Let me show you what I mean. Let me show you why Hawkins was never saved and why everyone in it has been dead from the very beginning. Will Byers disappeared on November 6, 1983. A quiet kid riding his bike home after a game of Dungeons and Dragons at his friend's house. The official story, the one we all accepted, is that he was taken into an alternate dimension called the Upside Down, a mirror world of decay and darkness, ruled by a creature the kids call the Demogorgon. But here's the first crack in the narrative. What was found exactly 1 week later. 7 days. In the Upside Down, a place with no food, no clean water, no warmth, filled with toxic air and predatory monsters. A 12-year-old boy survived 7 days in hell and came back relatively unharmed. Traumatized, yes. Changed, certainly. But alive, except the Will who came back wasn't quite right. Everyone noticed it. His mother noticed it. His friends noticed it. Even Will himself seemed uncertain about what he was. He had episodes, visions. He could still see into the Upside Down, still feel its presence. The doctors called it post-traumatic stress. But what if it was something else? What if the Will who came back was never really Will at all, but the first echo of a town trying to convince itself it could still be saved? Throughout the second season, Will's connection to the Upside Down grows stronger. He becomes a conduit for the Mind Flayer, a vast intelligence that exists in that realm. The Mind Flayer uses Will to spy on Hawkins, to learn about it, to find its weaknesses. And in the end, they save him. They heat the creature out of his body. They close the gate. They win. But did they really? Or did the Mind Flayer simply let them think they won? Because closing that gate didn't stop anything. The Upside Down kept spreading. Season 3 brought the flesh monster. Season 4 split the town open with 4 massive gates. Every victory just led to a worse threat. Every time they saved Hawkins, it needed saving again more desperately than before. It's almost like the town is stuck in a loop, fighting the same battle over and over, with higher stakes each time, but the same ultimate pattern. Threat emerges. Kids investigate. Adults don't believe them. Someone nearly dies. They defeat the monster. The town survives. Until the next time. That's not how reality works. That's how trauma works. That's how a dying mind works. Replaying the moment of death over and over, each time trying to find a different ending. A way out that doesn't exist. Consider the pattern of the attacks. Each season, the Upside Down's influence grows. Each season, more people die. Each season, the barrier between worlds becomes thinner. By the 4th season, Hawkins is literally being torn apart. 4 gates open simultaneously. The town is evacuated. The military moves in. It's no longer a secret. The whole world knows something is wrong with Hawkins, Indiana, and yet the characters keep acting like they can fix it, like there's still hope, like this is a problem that has a solution. They never ask the obvious question that anyone in that situation would ask. Why us? Why is this happening to this specific town? Why does the Upside Down want Hawkins? The answer is simple. It doesn't want Hawkins. It already has Hawkins. It's had it since the beginning. Since the moment 11 opened that first gate in 1983. Maybe even before that. Maybe Hawkins was always meant to be consumed. Maybe that's why the lab was built there in the first place. Maybe someone knew that particular location was thin, that the walls between worlds were already weak. And maybe when Will Byers vanished into the Upside Down, he didn't disappear into another dimension. Maybe he fell through into the truth. The real Hawkins. The dead Hawkins. The Hawkins that had already been consumed. And everything we've watched since then has been the town's dying dream, playing out in the space between seconds. Think about the way time works in the show. Things happen impossibly fast. Kids solve mysteries that should take weeks in a matter of days. Adults remain oblivious to obvious signs of danger. The military is simultaneously completely incompetent and overwhelmingly powerful, depending on what the plot needs. Characters survive injuries that should kill them. They make connections and leaps of logic that are just a bit too convenient. It all feels slightly off, like a story being told by someone who doesn't quite remember how reality works anymore. Someone who's been separated from the real world for so long that their simulation of it has started to break down, and the characters themselves seem to sense it. There are moments where they acknowledge how strange their lives have become, how impossible their situation is. How many times can you save the world before you start to wonder if you're actually saving anything at all? How many times can you watch your friends nearly die before you start questioning if this is really happening? Joyce Byers spends for seasons in a constant state of panic. She's always right. She always knows something is wrong before anyone else. She never stops fighting. But she also never asks herself why this keeps happening to her family. Why her son? Why her town? She just accepts it and keeps moving forward, because that's what the narrative needs her to do. Hopper sacrifices himself at the end of Season 3, except he doesn't die. He's captured by Russians and held in a prison camp in Kamchatka. Against all odds, he survives. Against all logic, Joyce finds him. They escape. They make it home. It's presented as a miracle, but it's also absurd. The show knows it's absurd. The characters treat it as absurd. But nobody questions it too deeply, because questioning it would mean questioning everything. And that's the thing about Hawkins. Nobody ever questions too deeply. They accept the impossible because the impossible has become normal. They've been conditioned to accept it. Or maybe they can't question it. Maybe the dream won't allow them to look too closely at the edges where it starts to fray. The Upside Down itself is the most revealing piece of evidence. It's not really an alternate dimension. It's a reflection, a dark mirror of Hawkins frozen at the moment of Will's disappearance. Nothing in the Upside Down changes or grows. It's stuck, suspended, and slowly, season by season, the real Hawkins is becoming more like it, darker, colder, more decayed. By Season 4, you can barely tell the difference anymore. The town is covered in ash. The sky is red. Gates are opening everywhere. The Upside Down isn't invading Hawkins. Hawkins is finally admitting what it's been all along. The Upside Down. The two were never separate. They were always the same place, just viewed from different angles of acceptance. Let's talk about 11, the girl with psychic powers. The child experiment who escaped from Hawkins' laboratory and became the town's greatest offender. The one who opened the gate to begin with. The one who keeps closing it. The alpha and the omega of Hawkins' nightmare. 11's powers are the linchpin of every season. She's a weapon they use against the Upside Down, but her powers don't make sense. They're not consistent. Sometimes she can kill a Demogorgon with her mind. Sometimes she struggles to move a toy car. Sometimes she can close interdimensional rifts. Sometimes she can't open a locked door. Her abilities seem to scale perfectly to whatever the story needs at any given moment. That's not how powers work. That's how hope works. That's how a dying mind would imagine salvation. Variable, unreliable, but always there when you need it most. Just barely enough to keep you alive. Just barely enough to make you think you can win. And 11 herself is caught in a loop. She opens a gate in 1983. She closes it in 1984. She loses her powers. She gets them back. She sacrifices herself. She survives. She's torn away from those she loves. She finds her way back. Over and over, the same pattern. Separation and reunion. Loss and recovery. Death and resurrection. She's not a character. She's a symbol. She's a town's collective will to survive given form. And like the town, she's becoming weaker. Each time she uses her powers, they take more from her. By season 4, using her abilities causes her physical pain, makes her nose bleed, exhausts her completely. She's running out. The dream is running out of power to sustain itself. Consider her backstory. She was raised in a laboratory by a man named Dr. Brenner, who subjected her and other children to horrific experiments. The goal was to create psychic weapons for the Cold War. It's a classic conspiracy theory setup. Secret government programs. Abused children. Monsters created by science. But here's what's interesting. Every other child in the program dies or disappears. 11 is the only one who escapes. The only one who survives long enough to become a hero. And even when the show introduces other numbers, other children with powers, they all fade away. They die or lose their abilities or simply vanish from the narrative. Only 11 endures. Because she has to. Because without her, the dream can't continue. She's the engine that keeps the illusion running. She's the hope that Hawkins refuses to let die. And Dr. Brenner himself is revealing. He dies. Then he comes back. He's alive. He's running a new facility. He's still experimenting. Still pushing 11. Still playing the role of the monster in human form. The show tries to complicate him, to give him depth, to suggest that maybe he really did care about 11 in his own twisted way. But it doesn't matter. He keeps coming back because the nightmare needs him to. You can't have a hero without a villain. You can't have escape without a captor. The Mind Flayer is similar. It's described as an ancient evil, a god of the upside down, a vast intelligence that controls everything in that realm. Its physical form is a giant shadow creature, all tentacles and malice. It's supposed to be the ultimate threat, the big bad, the thing behind everything. But it doesn't act like an intelligence. It acts like a force, like decay itself given purpose. It spreads. It corrupts. It consumes. But it doesn't have a plan. Not really. Its goals are simple and repetitive. Take over Hawkins. Spread to the rest of the world. It's not trying to communicate. It's not negotiating. It's just hunger. Pure, mindless hunger. That's what the upside down is. Not a place. Not a dimension. But hunger. The hunger of death. The hunger of oblivion. And Hawkins has been feeding it since the beginning. The Russians add another layer to the unreality. They discover the upside down. They build a secret base under the Hawkins Mall. They're trying to open their own gate. Why? The show says it's for weapons, for power. But it doesn't explain how they found out about the upside down in the first place. How they knew exactly where to dig. How they built a massive facility without anyone in Hawkins noticing. It's absurd. But it's the kind of absurd that happens in dreams. In dreams, the conspiracy is always just around the corner. The enemy is everywhere and nowhere. Threats multiply without explanation because the dreaming mind doesn't need explanation. It just needs conflict. It needs something to fight against. And every time they defeat the Russians, more appear. The base under the mall is destroyed. But there's another facility, in Kamchatka, where they're keeping a Demogorgon. And Hopper, against all odds. The conspiracy never ends because it can't end, because it's not real. It's just the shape that fear takes when it's trying to understand why everything is falling apart. The characters themselves are stuck too. Look at Steve Harrington. He starts as a popular jock, an antagonist. Then he becomes a hero, a protector, a friend to the younger kids. His entire personality shifts between seasons. And nobody questions it. Nobody says, Remember when you were a completely different person? They just accept it. Because in the dream of Hawkins, people can change instantly. They can become exactly what the story needs them to be. Or look at the relationships. Joyce and Hopper dance around each other for 4 seasons. Well, they won't they? The show teases it endlessly. Because resolution would mean something changing, something ending. And nothing in Hawkins is allowed to end. Everything has to stay in motion, always moving, never arriving. The romantic relationships between the kids follow the same pattern. Mike and Eleven, Lucas and Max Dustin, and his girlfriend Susie, who conveniently lives far away and only appears when the plot needs her. They're all stuck in amber. Young love frozen at the moment before it becomes real, before it has to deal with the complications of actual relationships. And the friendships fracture and reunite with predictable rhythm. The group splits up. They fight. They go their separate ways. Then danger brings them back together. They remember what matters. They reconcile. Until the next season, when they'll split apart again. It's the pattern of trauma, the cycle of abuse, the loop of a mind that can't escape its own prison. Pay attention to the music. The show is famous for its 80s soundtrack. Every episode packed with period-appropriate hits. It's nostalgic. It's evocative. It grounds a show in a specific time and place. But it also does something else. It keeps the characters stuck in the past. They're forever listening to the same songs, wearing the same clothes, living in the same era. Time moves forward, but only barely. Only enough to acknowledge that seasons have passed. The culture doesn't change. The world outside Hawkins barely exists. It's a bubble, a pocket, a moment stretched impossibly thin. Even the title sequence tells you what this is. The show opens with the same sequence every time. The red letters forming out of darkness. The synth music building. It's hypnotic, rhythmic. It puts you in a trance state. It prepares you to accept what comes next, no matter how impossible. And every season ends the same way, with a victory that isn't quite a victory. With a door that isn't quite closed, with the suggestion that it's over. But we all know it isn't. We all know it will happen again. Because it has to. Because the loop isn't complete until it starts over. The most damning evidence comes in Season 4. Vecna, the new villain, except he's not new at all. He's Henry Creel, number 1. He was the first child in Brenner's program. He had powers before 11. He killed his family. He was banished to the Upside Down where he became something else, something worse. And now he's back, killing teenagers through their trauma, through their guilt, through their darkest memories. Vecna is truth breaking through. He's a reality that Hawkins has been trying to deny. He shows his victims their sins, their failures, their deepest fears, and then he kills them in the real world by killing them in their minds. He's the Upside Down's final form. Not a monster from outside, but a monster from within, from the beginning, from before the lab, from before the gate. He was always there. And his plan? To open 4 gates, to split Hawkins apart, to merge the Upside Down with reality completely, not to invade, not to conquer, but to reveal, to show everyone what Hawkins has always been, a dead place, a consumed place, a place where the walls between nightmare and reality dissolved so long ago that nobody can remember the difference. The 4th season ends with those gates open, with Hawkins torn apart, with ash falling from a red sky, with the Upside Down bleeding through. And the characters stand there, looking at the destruction, and they say they'll fight. They say they'll find a way. They say they'll save the town. But you can see it in their eyes. They don't believe it anymore. Not really. They're going through the motions because that's all they have left. The dream is collapsing. The illusion is failing. And maybe, deep down, they've always known. Maybe they've always known that Hawkins was never saved. That it could never be saved. Because you can't save something that's already gone. There's a moment in Season 2 that everyone forgets about. It's brief, easily missed. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. Will is in the hospital after being possessed by the Mind Flayer. The doctors are examining him, running tests. And for just a second, maybe 3 frames, the machines flatline. His heart stops. The monitors show nothing. death, then it's gone. The machines are working again. Will is alive. Nobody reacts. Not the doctors. Not Joyce. Not the other characters. Because in that moment, the show is telling you the truth. Will died. He died in the Upside Down in 1983. Everything after is a dream. The hope, the desperate fantasy of a mother who couldn't let go. Joyce Byers is the key to understanding what Hawkins really is. She's the emotional center of the show, the driving force behind the search for Will in Season 1, the believer, the one who never gives up, even when everyone thinks she's crazy. Even when the evidence says her son is dead, she refuses to accept it. She tears apart her house looking for signs. She strings up Christmas lights to communicate with him. She tears a hole through her wall into the Upside Down itself. And she finds him. Against all odds, against all logic, she goes into that nightmare realm, and she brings her son back. It's beautiful. It's triumphant. It's every parent's dream. But it's also impossible. You don't walk into death and take back what it's claimed. You don't negotiate with oblivion, unless oblivion is being kind, unless it's giving you what you need to see, letting you play out the rescue, so you don't have to face the truth. What if Joyce never left her house? What if she's still there, in that living room, staring at those Christmas lights, waiting for a message that will never come? What if everything we've watched is her grief hallucination, her mind constructing an elaborate fantasy where she saves her son, and he's okay, and they're a family again? It would explain why Will is so passive, why he's always the victim, why things happen to him rather than him taking action. He's not a real person anymore. He's a memory, a ghost, a wish. He's the Will that Joyce needs him to be. Alive but damaged, present but haunted, never quite whole, because her guilt won't let him be. And Jonathan, her older son, he's the responsible one, the protector, the one who steps up to be the man of the house after Lonnie leaves. He's perfect, too perfect. He never complains, never rebels, never becomes his own person. He exists only in relation to his mother and brother. He's the son Joyce needs to help her cope with losing the other one. Even her relationship with Hopper fits the pattern. He's another parent who lost a child. His daughter died of cancer. He's been self-destructing ever since. Drinking, fighting, barely holding on. And then Will disappears, and suddenly Hopper has a purpose again. He has a child to save. A second chance. He becomes the father Will needs. The father figure Joyce needs. The fantasy of redemption. But Hopper's daughter, Sarah, is interesting. We see her in flashbacks. We see her death. We see Hopper's grief. But we never see her funeral. We never see the grave. We just see Hopper holding her. And then we see him alone. What if Sarah didn't die? What if Hopper is the one who died? What if he's another ghost in Hawkins' collective hallucination? A man who gave up on life, given one last chance to be a hero? It would explain why he survives everything. The Upside Down, the Russians, the prison camp, the Demogorgon. Impossible odds over and over. He should die 12 times. But he doesn't, because he's already dead, because the dream won't let him die again, because Hawkins needs him, because Joyce needs him. The kids operate on the same principle. They're too smart, too capable, too brave. Dustin understands complex scientific theories. Lucas is an expert marksman. Mike is a natural leader. Max survives being clinically dead. They're not real teenagers. They're the idealized version of teenagers. The heroes that adults wish kids could be when the world is ending. And their knowledge of the Upside Down grows impossibly fast. They understand how it works, how to fight it, how to move through it. They give it names, categorize it, turn cosmic horror into something manageable, something that can be fought with household items and determination. That's not how incomprehensible evil works, but it's how a coping mechanism works. Reduce the threat, make it smaller, make it something you can understand, and therefore something you can beat. The game of Dungeons and Dragons serves the same function. They use it to make sense of the nightmare. The Demogorgon, the Mind Flayer, Vecna, all borrowed from the game. All ways of turning the formless horror into something with rules. with stats, with weaknesses. If you can roll dice against it, you can kill it. If it has hit points, it can die. The game is a shield, a way of keeping the truth at arm's length. But what if the game came first? What if that campaign they were playing tonight Will disappeared was the last real thing that happened? What if Will died that night, riding his bike home, and everything since has been the rest of them unable to let go, unable to accept that their friend is gone? So they keep playing, keep adding to the story, keep rolling dice against death and pretending they can win. It's significant that every major threat can be tied back to their game. It's not that life is imitating art. It's that art is the only thing left. The story is all there is. Hawkins doesn't exist anymore. It's just a game board, just a campaign, just four boys who won't stop playing, because stopping means admitting their friend is dead. And the game keeps escalating, because that's what games do. Each adventure has to be bigger than the last, more dangerous, higher stakes. You can't go back to fighting goblins after you fought a dragon. So the threats grow. The Mind Flayer is bigger than the Demogorgon. Vecna is worse than the Mind Flayer. The apocalypse is always one step away because the game always has to build toward the apocalypse. That's how stories work. That's how grief works. It doesn't shrink. It grows. It consumes. It becomes everything. If you want a moment that gives it all away, watch the scene in Season 4 where Eddie plays guitar in the Upside Down. It's absurd. They need to distract the demo bats. So Eddie climbs onto a trailer and plays the most epic guitar solo in television history. Master of Puppets by Metallica. It's a crowd-pleasing moment. It's emotional. It's cool. It's also impossible. The Upside Down should have killed him in seconds. The toxic air. The cold. The monsters. But he has time to set up. Time to play. The scene goes on, and the demo bats swarm to him like they're drawn by the music itself. Like they're responding to a story beat rather than behaving like actual predators. Because that's what they are. Story beats. Not real creatures. They do what the narrative needs them to do. And Eddie sacrifices himself because that's what his character arc requires. The coward becomes a hero. The freak saves the town. He dies so the others can live. It's textbook storytelling, but it's terrible tactics. It's not what real people would do in that situation. It's what characters do. And then he's forgotten. By Season 5, Eddie barely exists in the narrative anymore. His death is referenced but not dwelled on. His uncle grieves, but the town moves on because he served his purpose. He was there to teach a lesson, to provide a moment, and then the story moved past him. That's not how real death works. Real death leaves holes. Real death changes people permanently. But fictional death? Fictional death is just another plot point. The way the town responds to the disasters is equally revealing. By Season 4, Hawkins has been through multiple catastrophic events. A child disappeared. The lab was exposed. There were deaths, fires. The mall burned down. And now there are earthquakes and giant cracks in the earth, and people dying in mysterious ways. The rational response would be to leave, to evacuate, to recognize that this town is cursed, and get out while you can. But people stay. Most of them stay. They have a relief center. They have volunteers. They're rebuilding, because the dream needs them to stay. The stage needs its extras. Hawkins can't be empty, because then there will be no town to save. So people remain despite every instinct telling them to run. They stay, and they pretend everything is normal. They hold bake sales while ash falls in the sky. They chat in parking lots while reality tears apart around them. That's not resilience. That's denial. That's a mind refusing to process trauma. The town is catatonic, frozen in the moment of its own death, acting out the motions of life while everything decays. Look at the buyer's house. It's the epicenter of so much of the horror. What was taken from there? The Upside Down broke through there. Joyce communicated with the other side there. And yet they keep living in it. They don't move. They repaint and repair and pretend it's fine. They hang new wallpaper over the place where Joyce tore through to another dimension. They replace the Christmas lights and act like this is a normal house in a normal town. It's not. It's a haunted house. It's a thin place. It's where the walls between worlds are thinnest. But they stay because leaving would mean admitting what happened. Admitting that their home isn't safe, that their son isn't safe, that nothing is safe. Better to stay in a haunted house and pretend the ghosts are friendly. The same logic applies to the town itself. Hawkins is built on top of the lab where they tore open reality, where they tortured children, where they created the situation that destroyed everything. The rot is in the foundation. The poison is in the groundwater. The evil isn't coming from outside. It's built into the structure of the place. It always was. You can't save a town built on horror. You can only abandon it. Let it die. Let the earth reclaim it. But they won't, because abandoning Hawkins would mean abandoning the dream. And the dream is all they have left. There are patterns in the deaths. Pay attention to who dies in Hawkins and how they die. Barbara Holland, Bob Newby, Alexei, Billy Hargrove, Eddie Munson. They all have something in common. They're outsiders being integrated into the group. They're new to the story. And just when they become important, just when they become real, they're killed off. Barb is Nancy's best friend, but she doesn't fit with the main group. She's a responsible one. The one who questions things. The one who thinks Nancy shouldn't go to Steve's party. She's the voice of reason, and reason has no place in Hawkins. So she dies first, taken by the Demogorgon while sitting by a pool. Her death is almost an afterthought. The show forgets about her for episodes at a time, because she was never meant to survive. She was a sacrifice, the price of admission to the nightmare. Bob is Joyce's new boyfriend. He's sweet. He's nerdy. He's genuinely good. He has no trauma, no darkness. He's just a nice man who loves Joyce and wants to help. He runs a Radio Shack. He's relentlessly positive. And he dies screaming in Hawkins' lab, tore apart by demo dogs while trying to reset the power. His death is brutal, prolonged. We watch it happen. We watch him die afraid. Because the dream doesn't allow happiness. It doesn't allow people to move on. Joyce was supposed to end up with Hopper. That's the story. Bob was an interruption, a deviation. So he had to go. The narrative course corrected. It always does. Alexei is a Russian scientist. The defector. He's innocent. He was forced to work on the gate. He doesn't want to hurt anyone. He just likes Woody Woodpecker and Cherry Slurpees. He's becoming friends with Murray and Hopper. He's helping them. He's being redeemed. And then he's shot at a carnival, randomly, by another Russian operative. He dies in Murray's arms, confused about why this is happening. Because Hawkins doesn't allow redemption from outside. You can't escape the conspiracy. You can't defect from evil. If you're marked as the enemy, you stay the enemy. Even if you change, even if you help, the dream needs villains. It needs threats. It can't let the Russians become sympathetic, because then who would they fight? Billy Hargrove's death is the most revealing. He's introduced as a villain, an abuser, racist, violent. He terrorizes the kids. He hurts Max. He's positioned as irredeemable. Then Season 3 slowly peels back his layers, shows his trauma, his abusive father, his pain. He's possessed by the Mind Flayer. He's turned into a monster against his will. And at the end, he breaks free. He protects 11. He sacrifices himself. He becomes a hero. It's a beautiful arc. It's emotionally satisfying. It's also complete nonsense. People don't change that fast. Abuse doesn't work that way. Redemption isn't a switch you flip in the moment before death. But it happens because the story needs it to happen. Because Billy's death needs to mean something. Needs to be tragic rather than just the elimination of a threat. But here's the thing. Billy's sacrifice doesn't save anyone. Not really. The Mind Flayer is still there. The gate still needs to be closed. Hopper still has to turn the keys. Billy buys them seconds. Maybe a minute. His redemption, his moment of heroism, is functionally meaningless. But it feels meaningful. It feels like it matters. That's the dream talking. That's the story imposing meaning on chaos. Eddie Munson follows the exact same pattern. Introduced as a suspect, the town thinks he's a killer, a Satanist, a freak, but he's actually innocent, actually kind. He takes care of Dustin. He's brave. He's selfless. And he dies in the upside down, swarmed by monsters, buying the others time. Another sacrifice. Another redemption. Another death that changes nothing about the larger situation, but feels important in the moment. Do you see the pattern? The dream keeps creating characters specifically to kill them, specifically to give the main cast someone to mourn, someone to make their victory bittersweet. The deaths are engineered for emotional impact, not for logical narrative progression. They happen because the story needs to hurt, because grief is the engine that keeps the dream running. And notice who never dies. Joyce, Hopper, Mike, Dustin, Lucas, Will, 11, Nancy, Jonathan, Steve. The core group. They come close. They're threatened constantly. They should die 100 times over. But they don't. They survive impossible odds over and over. Because they can't die. They're the dreamers. If they die, the dream ends. So they're protected by narrative armor so thick that nothing can penetrate it. Max is the exception that proves the rule. She dies. Technically. Vecna kills her. Her heart stops. Her bones are broken. She's gone. And then 11 reaches into her mind and pulls her back, literally resurrects her through sheer force of will. Max survives because she's been integrated into the core group. She's one of the dreamers now. The story won't let her go, but she's in a coma, brain dead, physically alive but mentally gone. And the show treats this as temporary, as something they'll fix in season 5, because the dream doesn't understand that some damage is permanent. It thinks everything can be healed. Everything can be fixed. You just have to believe hard enough. You just have to refuse to give up. That's not how death works. That's not how trauma works. But it's how hope works. And Hawkins runs on hope. Desperate, delusional, toxic hope. The hope that says you can undo what's been done. That you can take back what's been lost. That if you just fight hard enough, sacrifice enough, believe enough, you can make everything okay again. But you can't. And the show knows you can't. That's why it keeps escalating. That's why every victory is temporary. That's why the upside down keeps spreading. Because deep down, the dream knows it's losing. Knows it's dying. Knows that hope isn't enough. But it can't stop. Can't let go. Can't admit defeat. So it keeps fighting. Keeps creating new threats to overcome. Keeps building toward a final battle that it knows it can't win, because the alternative is acceptance. And acceptance means death. Real death, permanent death. The end of the dream and the beginning of nothing. The 4 seasons ending is the most honest the show has ever been. Hawkins is split open. The upside down is visible from the real world. Ash falls constantly. The sky is wrong. People are evacuating. The town is dying visibly, undeniably, and our heroes stand in the ruins and promise to fight, promise to end this, promise to save what can be saved. But you can see it in their faces. The exhaustion, the doubt. They're going through the motions. They're saying the words they're supposed to say, but they don't believe them anymore. Not really. They're just doing this because they don't know how to do anything else. Because stopping means facing the truth, and the truth is unbearable. Will says it explicitly. He can still feel Vecna. The villain isn't dead. The threat isn't over. And he's not going away. He's not going to stop. This isn't something they can win. It's something they can only survive. And survival is starting to look a lot like slowly dying. What if that's the point? What if the show is building toward the moment where they finally understand? Where the characters realize what the audience has suspected all along. That Hawkins was never saved because Hawkins is already gone, that they've been fighting ghosts and shadows, and their own refusal to accept reality. What if season 5 doesn't end with them defeating Vecna? What if it ends with them letting go, accepting what happened, walking away from the town and the dream and the impossible fight? What if the final victory isn't destroying the upside down, but finally admitting that it already won? That would be honest. That would be real. But it would also be devastating. It would mean every sacrifice was meaningless. Every death was for nothing. Every moment of hope was a lie. The audience would hate it. The characters would hate it. But it might be the only ending that makes sense. Because saving Hawkins isn't possible. It never was. You can't save something that's been gone since the beginning. You can only grieve it. You can only let it go. You can only stop feeding the dream and wake up to what's left. And what's left is ash and silence and a town-shaped hole in Indiana where 12,000 people used to live, where children rode bikes and played games and thought the future was infinite, where a boy disappeared one night and took the whole world with him into darkness. Hawkins was never saved. It was never going to be saved. The only question is how long the dream can last before even the dreamers have to wake up. Let me tell you what I think really happened. Not the story we've been told. Not the comforting narrative of kids saving the world. But the truth underneath. The truth that the show has been hinting at since the beginning. November 6th, 1983. Will Byers is riding his bike home. It's dark. It's cold. He's alone on a country road. Something happens. We're told it's the Demogorgon. We're told he's taken to the upside down. But what if it's simpler than that? What if Will Byers just died? A car accident. A fall. A sudden medical emergency. Something quick. Something final. Something a 12-year-old boy couldn't survive. His bike is found the next morning by the side of the road. His body is pulled from the water days later. A tragedy. A senseless loss. A town in mourning. But his mother can't accept it. Joyce Byers looks at that small body, and she breaks. She fractures. She refuses to believe it's him. She insists he's alive, insists he's out there somewhere, calling for help, and her grief is so powerful, so all-consuming that it spreads. It infects everyone around her. Her sons, her friend Hopper, who understands that grief, who carries his own dead daughter. The kids, Will's friends, who can't process that their friend is just gone. They all buy into the delusion together. They create a story where Will didn't die, where he was taken, where he can be rescued. And the story grows. It spreads through the town, through the people who love Will, through everyone touched by his death. They build the upside down together, a shared hallucination, a collective myth, a place where death isn't permanent, where children can be brought back, where love is stronger than loss. The lab is real. Hawkins National Laboratory exists. The experiments happened, but they weren't about opening gates to other dimensions. They were about studying consciousness, dreams, the malleability of memory and perception. And something went wrong. One of the subjects, a girl named Jane, 11, she was pushed too far. Her mind broke in a specific way. She gained the ability to affect other minds, to make them see what she sees, to share her nightmares. When Will died, 11 was devastated. She knew him. They'd met somehow. The details don't matter. What matters is she couldn't accept his death either. So she created a world where he wasn't dead, a world where he just needed to be saved. And her power was so strong that she pulled others into that world with her, made them see it, made them believe it. The upside down is 11's trauma given form. It's cold and dark and hostile, because that's how death feels to a child. It's a mirror of Hawkins frozen at the moment of Will's death, because that's the moment everything broke. And the monsters are her guilt, her fear, her self-hatred given shape. The Demogorgon is her rage. The Mind Flayer is her despair. Vecna is her understanding. Finally, that what she's done can't be undone. Every person in Hawkins is trapped in 11's grief dream. They're puppets, characters. They play the role she needs them to play. And some part of them knows it. Some part of them is screaming, trying to wake up, trying to break free. But they can't, because 11 won't let them. Because letting them go means letting Will go. And she can't do that. She's not strong enough. So the dream continues, season after season, threat after threat. The story gets darker because the grief gets heavier. The upside down spreads because the delusion is failing. The walls are cracking. Reality is bleeding through. And the only way to keep the dream alive is to raise the stakes. Make the threats bigger. Make the victories more impossible. Make the hope more desperate. But it's not sustainable. Dreams always end. Even the deepest dream eventually runs out of power. And 11 is tired. She's been holding this world together for years. For decades, maybe, because time doesn't work right in the dream. Every time she uses her powers, she's using herself up, burning through her life to keep everyone else in the illusion. By season 4, she's almost empty. The dream is collapsing faster than she can repair it. The cracks are everywhere. Vecna, the oldest part of the nightmare, the first monster, is breaking free, is showing people the truth, is killing them by making them see reality. And 11 can't stop him, can't fix it, can't hold on much longer. What happens in season 5? I think 11 finally lets go. I think she finally accepts that Will is dead, that he's been dead the whole time, that keeping everyone trapped in this nightmare isn't love, it's torture. And the kindest thing she can do, the bravest thing, is to end the dream, release everyone, let Hawkins die. The final scene won't be a victory. It'll be goodbye. The characters will fade. The town will vanish. And somewhere in the real world, an exhausted girl will open her eyes. She'll be in a hospital, maybe, or a care facility. Someplace quiet, someplace safe. She'll have been catatonic for years, lost in her own mind, and she'll finally wake up. The people who loved her will be there. Maybe some of them will be the real versions of the characters we've been watching, but older, changed. They'll have lived real lives while she was gone. They'll have grieved Will properly, buried him, moved on, and they'll help 11 move on too. Help her forgive herself. Help her understand that his death wasn't her fault, that she can't bring him back, that she doesn't have to. It won't be satisfying in the traditional sense. The audience will feel cheated. They'll say it makes everything meaningless. All the struggles, all the sacrifices, all the moments of triumph. What was it all for if none of it was real? But maybe that's the point. Maybe the show has been building to that realization all along. That grief makes us tell ourselves stories. That trauma traps us in loops. That sometimes love looks like letting go even when every part you want to hold on forever. That the bravest thing you can do is accept that some things can't be fixed. Some losses can't be undone. Some people, once gone, can't come back. Hawkins was never saved because there was nothing to save. Just a memory. Just a dream. Just a town that used to exist before a boy died and took it with him into the dark. And maybe that's okay. Maybe that's the lesson. Not that you should keep fighting impossible battles, but that you should know when to stop, when to grieve, when to heal, when to let the dead rest and the living live. The ash falling on Hawkins in the final season isn't destruction. It's dissolution. The dream burning away. The illusion finally, mercifully, coming to an end. And underneath, there's nothing. No town. No monsters. No heroes. Just silence. Just the space where something used to be. Just a natural end of all things that were never meant to last forever. That's the theory. That's what I think Stranger Things has been telling us from the beginning. That Hawkins died with Will Byers. That everything we watched has been the slow process of accepting that death. That no amount of hope or determination or psychic power can change what's already happened. That the past is fixed. That loss is permanent. That death wins. Not because death is stronger, but because death is real. And dreams, no matter how beautiful, no matter how desperately we cling to them, eventually have to end. So if you're still watching Hawkins, still hoping they'll find a way to win, still believing that this time will be different, ask yourself what you're really watching. Is it a story about heroes saving the world? Or is it a story about grief? About the stories we tell ourselves when the truth is unbearable? About the lengths we'll go to avoid accepting that some things are just over? Hawkins was never saved. It can't be saved. It's been gone since November 1983. And maybe, just maybe, the kindest thing we can do is let it go. Let the dream end. Let the characters rest. Let the town fade into memory where it belongs. Because holding on isn't love. Sometimes holding on is just another form of dying. And Hawkins has been dying long enough. Maybe it's time to let it finally be dead. If this theory resonates with you, if you've noticed the same patterns and cracks in the narrative, leave a comment. Tell me what you think really happened to Hawkins. Tell me what you think the final season will reveal. Because if enough of us see the truth underneath the story, maybe we can finally stop dreaming. Maybe we can finally wake up. And if you want to keep exploring the nightmares hiding in plain sight, the stories beneath the stories, then subscribe. Because there are more dreams that need to be examined, more illusions that need to be shattered, more comfortable lies that deserve to be questioned. Hawkins was never saved. Now you know why. Now you can't unknow it. Now every rewatch will show you the cracks, the hints, the truth bleeding through. And maybe that's the real horror. Not that the monsters were real, but that the hope was fake. That we've been watching a tragedy pretending to be a triumph. That the ending was written the moment Will Byers disappeared into the dark. And nothing that happened after could ever change that.